Welcome back. Chapter 21. At dinner, Etta was in such a good mood that she felt like a spotlight had been turned on inside her. First of all, no one had ever done for her what Max did. It was as though the world was divided into two categories. There were those who did the work and those who sat on silk cushions and were waited on. At home, her father and Alicia worked, but it was for their own businesses. Anything outside that was get Etta to do it. By default, the same dynamic had been set up in the Lawtons' household. Esmeralda had gone back to her family and everything had been turned over to Etta. But not tonight. Food, guests, even the table settings were all done by other people. When Etta saw Henry, it was all she could do not to throw her arms around him. He was so very familiar to her. She wanted to ask him about Ben and Caroline and how the baby was doing. She wanted to tell him how Max had averted the massacre. Her punchline would be, the Cheyennes didn't even show up. But she couldn't do any of that. She just praised Cornelia's utterly divine dress, asked her where she got her earrings, from New York, and smiled at Bert. When Martha arrived, Etta held her breath. Would calm Henry like fiery Martha in this life? Etta practically pushed Cornelia out of the room so Henry and Martha could have time alone. Cornelia knew what she was doing. That's like leaving a rattler with a baby mouse and hoping they'll become friends. Etta didn't retreat. In the dining room, they all took their places, but the two seats along the sides were empty. Henry and Martha were still in the entryway. She's killed him by now, Max said and started to get up. Etta looked down the table and gave him a glare to stay seated. They sat in silence for minutes. No gunshot so far? Max said. Too bad, Bert said. I've always wanted to do a murder trial. Pat spoke up. I should see about them. No, Etta said, and he sat back down. A minute later, Henry and Martha came into the dining room, and they were smiling as they took their seats. The grinning smirk that Etta directed to the others was of triumph and I told you so. Max ducked his head towards her as though in a salute. Cornelia, Bert, Alice, and Pat looked at her in astonishment. Even though Etta hadn't been in charge of planning the meal, she took over as they all expected her to do. My worry is that the little town of Garrett will disappear, she said, and they all blinked at her. It was an odd beginning to the dinner conversation. If the railroad moves, this town will vanish. No one will remember it. She passed the bowl of potatoes to Henry and looked hard at him. Instead of wandering all over the country and making pictures that aren't relative to each other, why don't you make a portfolio of drawings and paintings about one town? About Garrett. That Etta was saying this to a man she didn't know stopped them all in place. Even Max halted, fork to mouth. Henry just smiled. I don't stay in one place for long. But you could. You could rent a room for Martha. Even Henry was taken aback by this. I can't. I don't. He didn't seem to know what to say. Etta looked at Martha. Since this is your town, you know more about it than anyone. You can tell the history and Alice can write it down. Me? Alice said. I don't know how to write. Of course you do, Etta said. She looked back at Henry. You should go to New York and get your book published, like George Catlin did. You can't just leave your work behind. It'll be lost forever. It won't survive unless it's published. Everyone was looking at Etta in astonishment. She was being very aggressive, rude even. Cornelia broke the silence. I think that's a good idea. She looked at Henry. Your art is excellent. You could... Etta cut her off, giving Cornelia an intense look. You need to design a building, something so beautiful that it will last forever. A church, maybe. Make it of stone so it won't burn down. Pat will help build it. He's a true artist. And get your father to pay for it. He wants his name to live forever, so tell him the church will do that. He doesn't need a whole town, just one glorious building. They were staring at Etta in what could only be described as shock. She was bossing all of them around, planning their entire lives. Alice was the one who broke into their silence. She laughed loudly. "I'm next," she said cheerfully. "What plan do you have for me?" "Schools that would draw settlers in. Families, not just saloons." She glanced at Max and Bert. "As much as they're liked, they won't last." "Freddie will design a garden for Cornelia's church," Alice said. "Yes, of course," Cornelia said. "This chicken is delicious." With relief, everyone turned their attention to the food and they avoided looking at Etta. She knew she overstepped, but she couldn't tell them what she knew. A windswept plain was all that was left where the house stood now, and it had devoured the town. Worse was that there would be nothing left to remember any of these people. How could they so completely disappear? She didn't say much for the rest of the meal, and no one spoke of buildings, houses, or stone churches or schools, nor did they mention how Etta had warned of a Cheyenne attack that never came. It seemed all right for her to instigate love matches, but she was to stay out of the rest of it. When everyone started to leave, they were subdued, rather formal. At the door, Henry said, "I will think about what you said." Martha looked at Etta and shook her head. "You are a strange woman," she said, then left the house. Cornelia took Etta's hand in hers. "I've never had anyone believe in me as much as you do. Thanks. That means a lot to me. Come over tomorrow and I'll give you some chickens." "I'd like that." Cornelia kissed her cheek and left. Bert shook Etta's hand. "I like your idea. I think Cornelia should do it." "So do I," Etta said. He'd made her feel better. Pat paused at the door. "Thank you for believing that I can make something besides horseshoes." "I just told the truth," Etta said. Alice hugged her. "I think I'll try writing about our family." She hurried to her room. They all knew she would slip out the back and meet Pat in private. Alone, Max turned to Etta. "Let's go to bed." "I need to clean up." "That will be taken care of." When they were alone in their bedroom, he turned to her. "I put my foot into it," she said. "I was too bossy." "I was glad to see you back at being yourself, but..." "But what?" "You didn't give me anything to do." She sure enough didn't. Ooh. It hadn't occurred to her, but he was right. "You're the leader of everyone. You'll have to oversee whatever is done. Henry will have to be pushed, and Cornelia needs constant praise, and Alice will need you to remind her of what living in a side house was like." He was still looking at her, not satisfied with what she was saying. He began to undress. "I guess if Preacher Tobias had been here, you would have told him he was to do accounting for everyone." "Yes, I'd give him his orders tomorrow, but I think I should keep quiet." "I doubt if he'll be here." Max turned away to put his shirt on a hook in a wardrobe. "Has something happened to him?" she asked in alarm. "Not anything bad. Alice and Cornelia sent the woman Lillian to him. You said they're a pair." When Etta was silenced, he looked back at her. All the blood seemed to have drained from her. Her legs began to wobble, and she collapsed to sit on the side of the bed. Max sat down and pulled her into his arm. "Tonight wasn't that bad. I'm sure they'll all laugh about what you said. Imagine John Keckland paying to build a church, and Cornelia and Bert are going to move to KC. You did that." "It's finished," Etta whispered. "It's done." He pulled back to look at her. "What is done?" "My mission. Why I'm here. That was the last one. My parents are together." "Your parents are here? Why didn't you tell me?" She took his face in her hands. "Max, I love you. With all my heart and soul, I love you. I want to stay with you forever." He pulled her to him and held her tight. "It's all right. Don't cry. I know you love me." He stroked her hair. "Did you know that I've loved you since our wedding day?" Her face was buried in his neck and she shook her head no. Any woman who could be calm in the midst of one of Cornelia's tantrums had my heart, and you were so appreciative of Alice's gift, I was a goner. But later, you got mad at me, she whispered. I expected you to feel the same way about me, but you didn't. I hurt your feelings? He laughed. That you did, but you repaired the damage. He moved back to look at her. I love you, Henrietta. With everything I have inside of me, I love you. He kissed her tear-damp eyelids. I'm afraid I'll be taken from you. He didn't ask what that meant, but then he was growing used to the odd things she said. If you are, then you'll just have to find me. I'll wait for you forever. She didn't answer, just held onto him tightly. He pulled back. In the meantime, you want to try to make a baby? Oh, yes, 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 was all Etta could say as she pulled him down onto the bed and on top of her. And that's the end of chapter 21. She's Henrietta. Did y'all catch that? She is Henrietta. Wow. Oh my goodness, that I didn't put that together. I didn't see that. She is Henrietta. How we didn't see that? Auntie, we got some explaining to do. Did anybody else see that Etta was Henrietta? Or it's just me? But anyway, it sounds like her mission is done. She didn't go to sleep. So is her mission really done? Guess we'll find out in the next chapters. Bye for now.